Islam is a false religion because the Islamic concept of heaven doesn't make any sense.
What the hell is this? A'udhu billah.
This is a claim that was made by popular ex-Muslim YouTuber Apostate Aladdin.
There is a lot that doesn't make sense about Jannah, the Islamic heaven. I don't see how anyone can believe in it.
However, is this claim true? In this video, I investigate his claim to see if there is any truth behind it or not. So, does the Islamic concept of heaven disproves Islam, or is this just another lie? If you want to know, then please watch this video until the very end. So, let's get started. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Islamic podcast. Recently, I came across a video by ex-Muslim YouTuber Apostate Aladdin, and he was basically attacking Islamic scholar Sheikh Asim al-Hakim. In the video, Asim al-Hakim was basically describing the 7 levels in the Islamic concept of paradise. Apostate Aladdin claimed that supposedly this claim doesn't make any sense. Let's see what he has to say, and then I'll make my response.
The afterlife. The idea that our existence is so significant that it does not end with our death, but instead we continue to exist eternally in a different realm. It is a concept that is as old as long-dead civilizations, and it has stuck around ever since then. These are unfalsifiable beliefs by their very nature. There is no way to prove or disprove that we have souls separate from our nervous systems. And in the same vein, I cannot prove or disprove that these souls congregate after separating from our bodies.
So he says that when it comes to paradise, there's no way to either prove it or disprove it. This is a lie. There are a bunch of really good and sound arguments that you can use to prove that heaven does exist. And there are many arguments like this from Christian philosophers. For example, one of the philosophers is 16th century German polymath Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz.
I'm sorry, I made a big mistake. His name is Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, not Leibniz. I say this throughout the video, please see it in a forgiving light.
So Leibniz was famous for proposing a very specific type of argument. It's known as the principle of sufficient reasoning. He said,
"No fact can hold or be real, and no proposition can be true unless there is a sufficient reason why it is so and not otherwise."
So in other words, in order for something to be true or factual, there has to be an explanation behind why that thing is factually true. Basically, the idea here is that everything requires an explanation. Like for example, if there's a murder, we naturally assume that it just didn't happen by itself, right? Assume there's someone behind it. And one of the arguments for God's existence is that obviously this idea of PSR, or like principle of sufficient reasoning, cannot go on for infinity. So there has to something exist that doesn't require an explanation or explains itself by its own nature. It's basically God. So based on this, we can actually make an argument to prove that paradise exists. We can make the following argument. If paradise doesn't exist, then our existence fails the principle of sufficient reasoning. Premise 2 would be our existence doesn't fail the principle of sufficient reasoning. That's because we do exist, and that requires an explanation. Conclusion, therefore, paradise exists, which gives us sufficient reason for our existence. So basically, this is a modus tollens argument. So the way these kind of arguments work is that if P then Q, not Q, therefore not P. Same thing here. I think this is a very strong argument, and I think it works whether you're theist or atheist. So when he says that this is not something we can prove or disprove, he's lying. This is not true. You can actually prove it.
But what I can and will do is poke so many holes in the Islamic story that after watching this video, I don't see how anyone can believe in it.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
Did you know that Jannah has multiple levels that get better the higher you go? What is the difference between the levels if, according to this verse, everyone gets what their soul desires anyway? That is an excellent question. But first, when a child called into Sheikh Asim al-Hakim's show to ask him the same question, here is how it went.
Musa from Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
So, Sheikh, in Jannat there are many levels, but in the first level we can have anything we want, my parents told me. So if we can have anything we want in the lowest level, why are there so many levels?
So the question that the kid asks is an interesting question. It's very easy to answer. So think of it like, imagine that there are 2 buffets. One buffet has all the foods that you can eat, all the foods that you've eaten before and you know about. Then the second buffet also has all the food you know about, but it also has foods you know nothing about. You've never tasted and you don't know anything about. You didn't even know these foods existed, right? So which of these two buffet is the best? Obviously it's the second one, right? Because it has things that I've never even dreamed of or never even thought about. The same thing is true when it comes to paradise. So obviously in Jannah you can get anything you want. However, the reason Jannah is special is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created these places and there are things there that we have never experienced, but He knows that we will love them, and that is what makes them special. And that is the criteria by which there are levels. The thing is, when you want something, obviously it's something that comes from your imagination, and human imagination is limited. So He can prepare things for us that we have never even imagined, or it won't even register to us.
First of all, we don't know what each level has. Nevertheless, definitely there are benefits that differentiate the lower levels from the higher levels.
So let me get this straight. First of all, he doesn't know. Second of all, he definitely knows.
And then he committed the strawman argument fallacy. He basically strawmans the sheikh. He says that, oh, the sheikh is saying he doesn't know, but he also knows. But the sheikh never said this. What the sheikh is basically explaining is that when it comes to the specific details, he doesn't know. But as an abstract kind of like general idea of this kind of metaphysical objects or metaphysical existence, we know some details from the Quran, right? That's what he's talking about. He's not saying that he both knows and not knows at the same time.
So for example, if you look at the quality of things, definitely the quality of the higher levels are better than the lower levels.
What does that even mean? Would the wine in the higher levels taste sweeter? Are the couches softer? Will the heavenly maidens fake their pleasure more convincingly? What does he mean by a difference in quality?
Come here, let me slap you. Come here, let me slap you.
So again, he's committing the strawman argument fallacy. Nowhere does the sheikh says that lower level heaven will have lower quality product. He's not saying that. Basically, he's talking about things that are completely metaphysical and abstract, right? But what we do know is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed them in a way where the more higher level Jannah we get to, better experience we will have. He's not saying that things that exist in lower levels will somehow be lower quality. He's not saying that.
Say there is a difference in quality, the inhabitants of the lower levels wouldn't know or perceive that difference, because everyone gets what they want and everyone is satisfied. They're not even capable of feeling jealousy in heaven. So from their perspective, it's the best wine they ever drank and the best lay they ever had, regardless of which level they're on or what their neighbors above get. So this is a non-answer because there is essentially no perceivable difference.
You idiot, like, do you not understand that these are Muslims? Like, did that fact kind of like escape your mind? Muslims know there are 7 levels of paradise. Are you stupid? Of course they know.
The inhabitants of the lower levels wouldn't know
Or even if for some weird reason they don't know this, they can just ask around.
If you look at the proximity and how close you are to the Prophet ﷺ and to the companions, those who are in the higher level are definitely better than the ones in the lower level.
Okay, so the proximity to the Prophet and his companions is a selling point. This assumes that Muslims should care about being close to them, which tracks within the Sunni Islamic narrative. Muslims are supposed to idolize this group of men and hope to meet them in heaven, a group that includes mass murderers and wife beaters. I personally never wished to meet Umar ibn al-Khattab, for example, because he seemed like a bully with a short fuse.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
This is a lie. He says that Umar supposedly beat his wife. This hadith is weak. He doesn't show that the fact that this is weak. So he just lies. Are you seriously going to tell me that he doesn't know this is a weak hadith? So this hadith has been graded as weak by Sheikh Albani. For example, in this hadith, the inclusion of Abdul Rahman Musil in the chain of narrators makes this hadith weak, if not very weak. Hadith master Al-Makrizi in his Muqtashar Kitab al-Watr mentions that Abdul Rahman Musil, who not only is not known as stated by Al-Tawawi in Mughni, but is not known to narrate anything else whatsoever in all of Hadith literature. Yeah, this is a logical fallacy known as argument from hearsay. So basically he is making an argument from hearsay, from an unknown source. But it doesn't logically follow because it's from an unknown source. Also, like, even if we were to accept that this is a Sahih Hadith and this event actually happened, I've already explained this whole so-called wife-beating accusation against Islam. Please check my video against Apostate Prophet. Long story short is that basically the concept of wife beating is basically supposedly beating in a sense that where it doesn't cause any injury or harm, either emotionally or physically, which means this is not a type of beating where it does any kind of physical harm or causes any kind of domestic problem. And we know this because there's a hadith by Prophet ﷺ in Sunan Abu Dawud which says the Prophet said, Many women have come to the family of Muhammad complaining about their husband who beat their wife. And these men are not the best among you. Now, if this is really the case, that Prophet was okay with men beating their wife, even if it causes domestic problems, then obviously he wouldn't have said this. So basically what the Quran verse is describing is a type of situation where you're really friendly with your wife and you almost have like a best friend type of relation. You know how sometimes best friends hit each other playfully, or like just remind each other something. That's the kind of relationship we're talking about. This is not talking about in a way where it's like an abusive situation. But then again, this is a weak hadith. He's committing the cherry-picking fallacy. He's only quoting hadith that makes Umar radiallahu anhu look bad and ignoring hadith that does. For example, there's a hadith, there's a beautiful hadith actually, which shows how charitable Umar radiallahu anhu was. For example, this hadith can be found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi 3675. It says, the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessing be upon him, ordered us to give charity at the time, and I had some wealth, and I said to myself, today I will outdo Abu Bakr, if ever there were a day to outdo him. I went with half of my wealth to the Prophet and said, what? And the Prophet asked me, what have you left for your family? I said, the same amount, meaning half. Then Abu Bakr came with everything he had, and the Prophet said, oh Abu Bakr, what have you left for your family? Abu Bakr said, Allah and His Messenger. I said, by Allah, I will never be better than Abu Bakr. So these are the men Apostate Aladdin thinks are evil. These are evil men, right? These men who are so charitable that they're literally giving everything away, or literally giving half of their wealth away.
So I guess I would have rather been in the lowest level just to be away from them.
Because you're a fool, with all due respect, and you're ignorant of these things.
If you like the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If you want to support me, you can support me by becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member. Inshallah, see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.